one of the most prominent and influential individuals when it comes to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is Dr. Engineer Seleshi Bekele. His contribution and expertise in Ethiopia's mega dam and flagship project has been immense, winning the love and appreciation of Ethiopians across the nation. And he's my guest today in this edition of Addis Dialogue. With it, I'm Shifarao Lago, and do stay with us. Dr. Engineer Seleshi, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Let's first of all talk about the genesis of Ethiopia's flagship project, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. How did it start and how did it go eventually?
Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is a dam under construction on Abai River. Well, Abai is a river that provides a lot of opportunity for Ethiopia as well as downstream countries. This particular GERD site was studied under master plan study of 1960s by US Bureau of Reclamation together with the then responsible organization in Ethiopia, whereby we have established a lot of hydrological information measurement systems and identify also where essential projects like the hydropower development, the irrigation development, and other uses of water could be established. So the GERD site is particularly interesting because it is a site where all rivers enter into the main Abai and potentially maximize energy generation. So GERD is an optimal site to be established there. But there are also other sites within Abai River. So historically, serious work actually started from master plan study of 1960s and through generation, and there have been revision of master plan, start of other projects. Then ultimately about 11 years ago, the GERD main project has started.
At first, the dam was progressing at an incredible rate and the people were very happy. But sometime and somewhere, all of a sudden, it got stuck and it stopped in the past. What were some of the reasons for this?
There were delays in between, you are right, in the first 3 years. There were good progress of construction. But in the second year, actually, there was a subcontract given to a local construction company who is considered to be specialist in steel and electromechanical work, but experience was limited for this particular company. And the input of that particular component, the steel structure and electromechanical works, were delayed. As a result, the project overall progress delayed. It means you cannot complete the project if even a single bolt or nut is missing from the construction. So these components needed adjustments. That adjustment is actually replacing the contractor called Metek by more experienced contractors like turbine manufacturers are given a mandate of installing, and other companies who have experience in Ethiopia in steel and electromechanical work were engaged, and multiple additional contractors were added in order to revamp the construction activity. In fact, serious decisions were given when the change process, political change process started, and Prime Minister Abiy gave a serious decision actually to adjust all these recommended ideas in order to save and create momentum for the project.
All right. How did you manage to bring the construction of the dam back to track after such delays?
The decisions and directions given by the Prime Minister is to adjust the institutional arrangement, which is adjusting the board, for example, make it more responsible people or professionally highly affiliated people need to be engaged in the board of governance. And in terms of Ethiopian Electric Power, it has to seriously follow the project, support as needed. So these are the two institutional arrangements, including the Ministry of Water, to follow the project seriously. In the previous instance, this was a little bit separated. The second dimension is actually to bring in new subcontractors in order to accelerate the progress of the project. The third dimension is adjusting the technical issues to make it optimal project in terms of cost and the timing. For example, without reducing the total energy generated per year, you can optimize the number of turbines to increase the efficiency. So these are, the critical adjustments that were made.
Let's also talk about the current status of this mega project, which Ethiopians are, of course, proud of. What's the current status of the construction of the dam, and what's the progress like as we speak?
The current status is over 84% of the dam construction is completed. We are at the stage of having the first generation, early generation. Turbine Unit 10 is going to give us power, which is going to produce about 375 megawatt installed capacity. So that is status we have. So that is the real result for the first time that we get from the GERD construction. The previous ones are, bringing, the baby from being in the womb to a level where it can really become to life. So Ethiopians are at the verge of happiness. Really, the first turbine will deliver the result expected.
Could you tell us on the new developments regarding the planned early power generation of the dam?
The unit is going to produce about 375 megawatt, as I've said. Then it will continuously generate and release water into the downstream, in addition to the overflow component or the bottom outlet component. So number one, water continues to flow downstream without interruption. Number two, then other turbines come into operation step by step, and the second Unit 9 will come in few months' time. It is under installation. Then the other units will follow accordingly, and at the same time, the construction of the concrete structure and the remaining steel works are continuously put in place, and those are the steps you follow for the construction.
Okay. So what is the meaning of the power generation of the first turbine?
It means the generated power will be injected into the grid. That means it will be supplying energy to where it is needed. It boosts current available power generation in Ethiopia. For that matter, actually, this is one turbine itself is a big plant you can call, because you can compare to Gibe 1, almost double of Gibe 1, or you can compare it to Takaze Dam. It is higher than the total capacity of the Takaze Dam. That is the meaning of this power generation, early generation by one turbine.
Let's also talk about the negotiation regarding the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. So as we speak, what's the negotiation like over this mega project? And what are some of the lingering issues, if any?
Well, the negotiation basically in a situation of shared river basins, hydropower project shouldn't have been contested and shouldn't have been entered into negotiation. But since the downstream countries have said they have concerns, we started actually inviting them to come into the dam construction site, study it and see if they see any problem with it. A lot of time have been put under this negotiation until we reached 2015, which created the Declaration of Principle. That is supposed to be a confidence building measure, declare certain principle like equitable, reasonable utilization without causing significant harm. That is also enshrined into Comprehensive Framework Agreement of the Nile Basin. Based on that, we have also had specific articles that makes our negotiation principle based and also enable us to cooperate. However, due to certain unfavorable position from the downstream countries and also trying to impose certain will which actually interferes with the interest of Ethiopia in an aggressive way, this negotiation couldn't be completed. So we have been doing this since 2017 in an intensive manner based on the Declaration of Principle. So the three countries are the owners of the negotiation. When we negotiate, we try to reach an agreement. Agreement means when you agree on certain thing, you sign for it. Right. Yeah. So that is where we are. We are negotiating. We have resolved on many issues. Few lingering issues are there, like on issues of water use, which is not actually supposed to be embedded into the GERD, but because of certain proposed articles coming from the downstream countries imply the hindering of future development in Ethiopia. We have to seriously negotiate on these issues, how to manage those kind of questions. On certain issue of the nature of the agreement, like the binding agreement, what Egypt side is always raising, if you sign on certain agreement, it is always binding. So that binding shouldn't just bypass a certain constitutional or parliamentarians' laws that country observes while you sign for it. So on the dispute resolution mechanism, then we have certain differences. Those differences must be carefully crafted in order to arrive at amicable solution for those kind of issues. So on the issues, even if it is described as binding agreement, it's actually about dispute resolution. But for the dispute resolution on certain issues, we have put a number of steps. For example, when a certain issue are not agreed or problems are created, the first step is for technical experts to be recommended from the three countries to review it. In this drafted agreement, we have those elements. Technical experts look into the issue and solve the matter. If it is beyond the technical people, then it goes to the ministers. Then the ministers resolve the matter. These are, very crucial steps. Then after, as it is also described in the Declaration of Principle, if it is not agreeable, then we go for mediation or facilitated negotiation or as referring the matter to the heads of state. So this is it is clearly articulated in the Declaration of Principle. So those are, the lingering issues simply taking a lot of time unnecessarily.
Talking about legally binding agreement, Egypt still says Ethiopia must sign the legally binding agreement. If so, how can Ethiopia and Egypt reach a negotiated agreement in such cases?
Negotiation is very important. To empathize one another in order to understand on the issue clearly. When you write a certain article with its related commas, words, and so on, it has to protect the interest of all parties. It has to come to an agreeable conclusion of that particular article. Legally binding agreement, even if you sign on MOU, unless you reject it at certain point by agreement or by instrument set in the agreement, it's still binding. So when we say we negotiate and arrive at a certain conclusion that to be signed by ministers, it has to follow certain principle, but it is a conclusive agreement. It is binding on each party that is signing for it, whether it is MOU, or agreement, or other form. So we are always bound by the content of that particular document. The implication should be carefully observed because we are in a complex system where the two downstream countries arguing with Ethiopia have just taken the entire water among themselves. So we have to be careful that whatever we are signing is not subscribing to this kind of unfair and non-starter type of agreement.
Let's also talk about Sudan. As you know, Sudan says it needs guarantees from Ethiopia on the dam safety and also on the operation of the dam. So what's your message in this regard?
These things are more of political than a realistic issue. Number one, dam safety is basically managed by the dam owner itself. The dam owner basically looks into the maintenance, the operation, how to utilize the water from its own dam. Ethiopia cannot just jump and go and secure the dam safety of Rosaires Dam. But when you have a dam like Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, it is a blessing for Sudan, for Rosaires Dam. Why? Number one, you see the variability of the river itself. There are cases when there are huge flood. There are cases when there are very low flows. What does GERD does for Rosaires Dam? It suppresses, it reduces the amplitude of the huge flood by storing the huge flood in the GERD and release regulated flow towards Rosaires. So if you just take that particular scenario alone, it does then Rosaires will no more be exposed to high variability of flow. Rather, it gets an amplitude reduced type of extreme events. Particularly in the area of climate change, it is a very blessing solution. Second, in the drought period also, it releases because in any particular year, the interest of Ethiopia is not to keep the total amount of flow in the reservoir. Once it is filled, then it continuously releases whatever comes in a particular year in full. It doesn't make carryover storage to other years. Therefore, what does it mean? Sudan gets a regulated flow throughout the year in more or less uniform manner. That means it's heavily useful for Rosaires to remain in a stable condition. The water in the Rosaires is not necessarily operate up and down. Rather, it can maintain the maximum level, and its power generation as Rosaires could be maximized. Also, the water flowing downstream is also regulated in the river corridor. The same result transmits to Aswan High Dam. Aswan is bigger than the GERD reservoir in terms of water quantity. That one also has additional bank of water, especially during drought years, and also have a regulated flow. So this entire corridor between Rosaires up to Aswan High Dam can be used for navigation and other uses in a more stable manner. So the other conditions that in terms of safety of Rosaires or general information exchange issue, Ethiopia is very open to give all needed data and information to Sudan for what is needed for Rosaires Dam operation. We haven't hesitated on anything in terms of data exchange, but it has to be reciprocal. When you give data and information from your side, you have to get the other side dam information, so that at a certain point, relationships are ups and downs between neighboring countries. So you have to verify from both sides. So those are the issues. And some of the safety issue relates to reservoir site clearing. It means related to clearing the forest and so on. We are doing it and we are fulfilling those requirements. And some of the issues that were raised in terms of adjusting some of the parameters and adjusting the construction techniques are already done. Mutually, we have discussed and adjusted those issues. Sudan was very happy. In terms of safety, by the way, international panel of experts have studied it carefully for 1 year long, taking 153 bound documents and found this is the safest dam done according to modern construction technology. And also we are using the most experienced contractor, the WeBuild, name is now WeBuild, the Salini in Pergio, has got a lot of experience. 50, 60 dams all over the world, big dams were constructed by this company. So we are building modern and safe dam.
Dr. Engineer Seleshi Bekele, thank you so much for this interview, and thank you for the contribution that you have been playing, for this mega dam.
Thank you very much.
Well, dear viewers, with that we come to the end of today's program, and many thanks for your company so far. Until I see you next time with yet another program, it's goodbye from me, Shifarao Lako. Bye-bye.